Hello folks, it's Westeros here, and yes, I realize I did say that my last video would be the final one dealing with Season 6 before Game of Thrones comes back on TV, but I didn't anticipate another trailer coming out this soon before the show. So I will do what I always do and give my thoughts on the recently released trailer and make, yet again, some more crackpot predictions for Season 6 of Game of Thrones. Because a lot of what is shown in this trailer is more or less a repetition of what came out in the original Red Band trailer, only with some extra detail, there isn't a lot to add with respect to some scenes, but other elements of the trailer do add quite a few details to some of my other predictions, and in some cases, reaffirm my convictions for them. Let's start first by talking about the Red Priestess and her appearance in the trailer. Evidently, this proves that the faith of the Red God will play some significance in Meereen this upcoming season, given the fact that we know from the other Red Priestess in Volantis that a number of these followers of the Red God are speaking in favor of Daenerys Targaryen as the Azor Ahai figure. It does make one wonder just how successful, if at all, this religion will be in stabilizing the turmoil in Meereen. My personal hunch is that this will only create even more factions within the upheaval at Slaver's Bay, and depending on how Daenerys treats these worshippers of the Red God once she presumably comes back to Meereen with the Dothraki, it will determine whether or not they will hold some form of influence or power within the city by the end of the season. Moreover, the fact that Varys and the Red Priestess seem to have exchanged rather suspicious looks to one another does make me suspect that Varys just might be the one orchestrating the Harpies' rebellion in Meereen in order to ensure Dany's return to Westeros, but that is just a hunch, and it could just be that he doesn't like magic and that's the only reason why he looks at her that way. Speaking of which, this other clip of Masters being killed by Sons of the Harpy absolutely solidifies the fact that a large part of the plot for Meereen this season will focus on the political turmoil there. Also, given Tyrion's line that, quote, dragons do not do well in captivity, and the fact that Tyrion is then seen with the two remaining dragons does lead me to believe that he just might succeed in freeing them from their shackles. How he manages to do this, and whether or not either of the two dragons avoid harming him, does remain to be seen. But at least I think Tyrion will see the possibility of releasing the two dragons as a way to sort of distract the Sons of the Harpy from feuding with Dany's faction, and perhaps buy them some time until the Mother of Dragons returns to Meereen. Or perhaps I'm just being weirdly optimistic about that. Now, in terms of Dany, I do think it is interesting that they show her being stripped of her clothes in front of the other Dothraki women, presumably the Dosh Khaleen, widows of previous calls, because it is somewhat reminiscent of Cersei's own treatment during her imprisonment and subsequent walk of shame, where one character was stripped bare to be paraded in front of the citizens of King's Landing, showing that she is just a person like anyone else. Dany also walks to Vaes Dothrak like any other Dothraki or any other Dothraki slave before being stripped of her clothes in order to join these ruling widows. But in this case, to perhaps remind her of the fact that she is the widow of a Khal and her place is therefore with these women. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this rumored Red Wedding 2.0. So, moving back to Westeros now, the fact that we see Walder Frey with Lannister soldiers at the Twins and Jaime Lannister riding with Lannister forces in an earlier scene evidently does lead me to believe that there will be a meetup of these characters. Moreover, the fact that in this clip we see Pod being grabbed by a figure who, to me, looks a lot like Bronn, does seem to dictate that Brienne and Pod will be going back south and end up in the Riverlands. Now, how or why this is the case, and whether or not they find Sansa back in the north and she maybe then asks them to go south, does remain to be seen, but I will say that it would make for an interesting twist if Sansa, rather than Littlefinger, is the one to orchestrate a second Red Wedding in vengeance for her murdered brother and mother. At least this is a popular theory with my fellow Game of Thrones YouTuber Val from Because Geek. There is also talk that the Blackfish is coming back this season, and considering that I highly doubt we'll get Lady Stoneheart this season, I do wonder if there isn't a slight chance that the Blackfish will act as a sort of stand-in for her rather than Sansa. Personally, I think both options would make for an interesting plot. However, I do think it would be a little strange, especially in terms of the timeline, for Sansa to head back to the Vale only to then return back north, all within the course of a season. But of course, it's not entirely impossible. Moreover, I do really wonder what will happen with Theon this season, especially given this picture of him crying in front of another individual who could, or could not, very well be Yara. But I guess we'll find out.
A girl has been given a second chance. There will not be a third.
Now, the fact that this line was delivered to Arya makes me strongly suspect that she will absolutely screw up her third chance in some way. How or what that will be remains to be seen, but I really do think this will involve her eventual decision to return to Westeros, hopefully by the end of this season. Also, I realize quite a few other individuals have discussed the notion of wolves showing up in the Riverlands this season, and many do think Arya might warg into Nymeria to lead them against the Freys, but I am inclined to believe the fact that Bran could also be a candidate in directing the wolves against the Freys, considering his power as a greenseer. Again, that's just one crackpot theory in that respect. On another note, I want to talk about the clip we get of Yara in this trailer, and this, funny enough, does involve me potentially questioning one of my own previous predictions with respect to her storyline. In the trailer, we get clear images of her kissing the other woman who seems to have a tattoo of a teardrop on her cheek. The fact that slave prostitutes in Volantis typically wear a teardrop under the right eye leads me to suspect that Yara just might be in Volantis itself, and is in fact the one who is going to Meereen to find Daenerys, either under orders from her uncle, or perhaps even seeking assistance from the Mother of Dragons herself to retake the Iron Islands from him. Though I realize the prostitute has a tattoo of the teardrop under her left eye, it still leads me to believe that this scene might be taking place in Volantis while Yara is en route to Slaver's Bay. Anyway, folks, I will end my thoughts there for this second trailer. There are already a bunch of other fantastic videos dealing with it, I am sure, so be sure to check them out as well. As always, I will try to get at least a couple more Game of Thrones videos out before Season 6 starts, so stay tuned. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.